All right, what's going on, A Rules? Shout out to you. Appreciate you for tuning in. Yeah, I thought it was the right thing to do. Kind of talk about this. I feel like everyone wants to hear my thoughts and wants to hear everybody's thoughts on what the Vikings should do to replace Kirk Cousins. So that's kind of what we're doing. Let me switch the mic real quick. All right, I think that sounds a little bit better, hopefully. But yeah, man, let's see what you say. I think we should give Mullins a chance when he's off IR. Yeah, so we already know, everyone kind of knows, I hope, that Kirk Cousins did officially tear his Achilles tendon, which is not great news for our season, especially when we were just getting going, starting to look like a really good ball team. I mean, offensive, without even Justin Jefferson, our offensive line was starting to play well. The only thing that our team hasn't done great this season is the running game. We haven't been able to get that running game going with either Alexander Madison or Cam Akers, even though I do like Cam a little bit better than Alexander Madison. But now we have to look forward of what are we going to do? What are the Vikings going to do next? There's a lot of things kind of playing out. The Vikings have a decision to make, and it's not an easy one by any means, right? What's up, Ron? Johnny Manziel? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Or Tom Brady, to be honest. I don't think you can unretire twice. But the Vikings have to make a decision. Okay, right? We drafted Jaren Hall this year, so in hopes that he could potentially maybe take over the reins at some point if he turns out to be a superstar, turns out to be a guy, which I think that's what Kevin O'Connell was hoping when he drafted him. Yes, we have Nick Mullins, but he's still on IR. Okay, he's still not healthy. He hasn't been healthy basically the entire season, which is definitely not great when you look at things from the outside in, I guess you could say. But it was just a devastating loss. I felt sick to my stomach just because of how well we were playing and the momentum that we were gaining throughout the season. So we have to go forward and kind of look at these quarterbacks, not only in free agency, but potential trade targets. And there's one we're going to talk about here in just a little bit that I think would make a lot of sense. And I hope most of you guys would probably know who it is that I'm probably talking about, plays for the Dallas Cowboys. That should be a big enough hint. But a lot of people are speculating right now that the Vikings are going to trade for somebody, or it's going to be signing a free agent. Because you're not going to roll forward, or you're not going to go the rest of the season with Jaren Hall as your quarterback. It's just that's not going to happen. Look, we're 500, we're 4-4. We have a chance to make the playoffs. I believe we're still the 7th seed in the playoffs. So we have to find somebody that can win us ball games, keep us in the playoff race, and keep us in that playoff hunt for the rest of the season. That's just what it comes down to. You can't just punt on the season, even though I'm sure there's some Vikings fans that would be okay with that. Being completely honest with you, I know there's some that would be like, yeah, let's get a good draft pick. Let's go get Drake May. Let's go get J.J. McCarthy, and that's okay. I mean, I completely understand those takes, but look, when you're rolling like we have been the last 4 games or the last 3 games at this point, now beating the Niners, then we just beat the Green Bay Packers, who's their team is not that great this season, and we kind of exposed that a little bit yesterday. But there's a lot of things that we need to address. Or I guess we have to address that quarterback position and then that running back room as well. We have to make some trades before this deadline, but what do we do with Kirk Cousins? Now, we're looking at this chat right here. A-Rules and Ron Jeremy, appreciate that. He said Johnny Manziel, that's not going to happen. He's over and done with in the NFL. It's just, dude never watched film. I guarantee you he's not in shape. Tom Brady, I would love it. My mom even sent me an article saying like fans are begging for Tom Brady to come out of retirement. I'm not sure he can. I think it's against the rules. I'm not 100% sure how that all plays out. I don't think you can unretire 2 times, even though he already did once. I haven't looked into that anyway, but that's just not going to happen. Even though, hey, I would love it. Tom Brady's my favorite player in the history of the National Football League, other than this guy right here, Randy Moss, but that's just not going to happen, okay? So, I mean, Cam Newton, you could potentially say that'd be okay for the Minnesota Vikings, but we've seen what he did at the end of his career. He might have some juice left, but I don't see him leading us to the playoffs. I don't see him single-handedly winning ball games like Kirk Cousins was basically doing. I mean, he was balling out this season, right? 2,331 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, had 103.8 quarterback rating, which is basically he's on pace for the best season statistically that he's ever had, right? And so losing him right now is just not great. Let's see. His worst game this year was against Carolina, 139 passing yards. Otherwise, he has well over, I guess the Bears only 181, but he has well over 250 passing yards in every single game. little to no interceptions. He has a couple fumbles. That was one thing that we were worried about early on in the season, was that turnover differential and stuff like that. But Kirk Cousins he's been balling out. Mike White, okay, Carson Wentz. So that Carson Wentz was the big one that came up basically right after the game when I went on social media and kind of was seeing what the vibe was, I guess, if you will, to see where we were going to head next. And Carson Wentz would make a lot of sense at the same time, just because I feel like he'd be cheap. He's willing to come into an organization and know that he's not going to be the franchise guy. He just needs to be a person to get you over the hump a little bit. And I think Carson Wentz still has it. I just, those last couple years, those last couple seasons he had in the National Football League were not great. Okay, Indianapolis Colts, he had 2 sprained ankles. Didn't look great. Then he goes to the Commanders. Again, didn't look great again. Has an injury-riddled past. So I'd be okay with Carson Wentz. But if we want to make a run, like realistically, if we want to make a run, Carson Wentz isn't the guy. Okay, he did it for the Philadelphia Eagles way back in the day, but that ain't the same, or this ain't that same Carson Wentz that it was when he was with Philly. Even though he'd be cheap, it'd be a guy who's, has that veteran leadership, or has that, how do you want to say it, the veteran experience out there as being a starting quarterback. So that wouldn't be bad. But I think we'd look elsewhere. Nick Foles, again, one of those guys. It's Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. They're so similar to me in the aspect of they can win you ball games, but can they make a playoff run? Can they make a run in the playoffs? I just don't see that. Yeah, Nick Foles is a great game manager, if I do remember correctly, but I think the turnovers and stuff. So those two I'd want to stay away from a little bit. But if we have to sign somebody and it's cheap, those two would be a great option. I've seen Ryan Tannehill as well. Now, Ryan Tannehill, I don't know how I feel about that one. Okay, we just watched probably his season come to an end after what Will Levis did this past weekend. Just absolutely balled out, threw 3 touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins, looked great. He's going to get another start this weekend, or I think they play Thursday. But anyways, he's getting the start again. So Ryan Tannehill, trading for him, you wouldn't have to trade much, and I'm not sure. Does anybody know what Ryan Tannehill's contract is? I guess I could probably look it up myself, but because if it's not a big contract, sure, I'd take it on. Like unless it's a big contract, then Tennessee's gonna have to eat some of that, and I'd be okay with Ryan Tannehill. But again, like we have a chance here. We have the momentum. Yeah, the soul got sucked out of our offensive lineman last game. You could see it right at the end of the game. Jaron Hall had nowhere to go, had no time in the pocket, and I think that was just because a big injury like that. I had one in high school, okay, and I know that ain't the NFL, but it was a playoff game against one of the biggest schools in the conference or whatever, and our running back ended up breaking his leg, and we went out there thinking, yeah, let's go smack these people in the mouth. That did not happen, okay. You could just tell that the soul was sucked out of us. We ended up losing pretty badly, and it just one injury like that can completely take apart a team. So, yeah, okay, yeah. So, okay, that's what I was going to. Ryan Tannehill's contract right now. Let's go see. So he signed a 4-year, $12.6 million contract with the Dolphins. So that's not what I want. I don't care about the Dolphins. That was years ago. Come on, Spotrac. Jesus. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it looks like Ryan Tannehill's on the final year of his contract with the Tennessee Titans. He has 2 voidable years, becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2024 if he doesn't want to stay with Tennessee. Okay, so this is his last year in Tennessee. He has 2 voidable years, which basically means that they can move money down the line and stuff. But right now his base salary is $27 million. And that's a lot of money. Okay, I think the Titans would have to eat the majority of that contract if he wants to get traded over here and be a Minnesota Viking. Otherwise, we're gonna have to move on from some players, find a way to clear up some cap space. So Ryan Tannehill is not a bad option, but we could see better options or have better options out there. Let's see where else we're at. Case Keenum, yeah, I heard Case Keenum earlier today. I actually, right before I got home from work, I heard that because he obviously played with the Minnesota Vikings, had that Minneapolis Miracle. He's currently, I believe, the 3rd-string quarterback on that Houston Texans roster. So that'd be a decent selection as well. But at this point in his career, I think Case Keenum's a backup. And yeah, he's better than Jaren Hall, but is he better than Nick Mullins? I think that's kind of where I look at that's what I look at with Carson Wentz and Ryan Tannehill and Nick Foles. Are they better than Nick Mullins? Now, we haven't really seen Nick Mullins. We've seen him when he was the San Francisco 49ers, and that offense seems to work with basically every single quarterback that's over there. So you really can't take that into consideration. That's just kind of where I'm standing with those. Teddy Bridgewater, again, I heard that. I've heard so many names, it's ridiculous. Like, the Vikings need to go out and sign a quarterback, and it has to happen. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we roll a Jaren Hall, we are punting on the season. That is what it tells me as a fan, that we don't care about the rest of the season. And if we roll a Jaren Hall the rest of the year, don't expect Justin Jefferson to come back until after the bye. I just don't think that's... Why would he want to? Especially, I think he's going to... Like, if we roll a Jaren Hall, he's going to want to wait till after that bye to see where we are and where we stand as a team. Where we are in the playoff race. Are we in a hunt? Like, are we just... Is this season over and done with? He's not going to miss the rest of the season. That's just... I don't see that happening just because of the type of player he is. But if we roll a Jaren Hall, he's not coming back till after week 13 bye. So week 14, we'd have him at the back half of that season. And we can't afford that. So we have to look right now. Like, the trade deadline's tomorrow, I believe, at 3 p.m. Central Time. So we have to go out and sign somebody. Obviously, Case Keenum wouldn't be bad, but Bridgewater, back to him. Shout out to the Gridiron Blitz or the Detroit Lions, or the Lions Syndicate host Grid. He brought up the fact that he's like, I'm gonna make a video talking about maybe sending or trading Teddy Bridgewater back to the Minnesota Vikings, and obviously, I'd be okay with that. Okay, I loved Teddy when he was here. A lot of Vikings fans love Teddy. We've got to see what he is still capable of since he left when he was with Miami. I think he was 5-0 or something, or with the Saints. I can't remember off the top of my head what he did, but he was playing some good ball, and I still think he has a lot left in the tank, and he's a really, really, really good backup for Detroit. But bringing back Teddy would be awesome because we all know how his career ended here, with that brutal knee injury. So I would like Teddy. I think that'd be great, just to kind of have a resurrection of his career almost back in Minnesota, a reunion. I think that'd be kind of cool, to be completely honest. I'm not sure what we would have to trade to get Teddy. It probably wouldn't be much, if anything at all. Maybe like a 7th round pick, sixth or 7th round pick. It also depends on what Detroit has in that quarterback room. Who's their depth, or what's their depth looking like in order for them to trade Teddy Bridgewater. But I'd be 1,000% okay with Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, yeah, Hendon Hooker. That's right. Hendon Hooker is their backup. That's what Grid was telling me, is that they activated, or they're going to activate, his 21-day practice window coming off IR, or at least in the next day or two that's going to happen. So it would make sense for Detroit to part ways with Teddy because they drafted Hendon for a reason, just in case Jared Goff goes down, or just in case, Jared Goff, or they want to part ways with Jared Goff down the line, then Hendon Hooker's next up. It's kind of that next man mentality. But Teddy, I think Teddy would be okay. I really do. Brady plus Moss, the most lethal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, Ron. Absolutely. That was, 27 or 21 touchdowns? It just, plain and simple, this man is ridiculous. Greatest wide receiver to ever play the game. 1,000%. That's my opinion. You guys can have your own, but that is who I really cherish and who I really like. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we did. Okay, so yeah, we still have Sean Mannion. I did forget about... Did we cut Sean Mannion? I don't think so. Sean Mannion. Let's go see. If he's still on our team... Okay, yeah. So we still have Sean Mannion, and he's on our practice squad. That means we have Jaren Hall. Probably going to have to call up Sean Mannion, and then we'd have Nick Mullins coming off of IR. But again, I don't trust Sean Mannion. I'd rather have Carson Wentz or Nick Foles or Ryan Tannehill than Sean Mannion. Yeah, he played with us, and he was okay. He wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but I just would not want to roll with that right now, to be completely honest. Mullins and Keenum side by side to analyze. Yeah, no, 1,000% A-Rules. I agree with that. I'll need to see Mullins and Keenum side by side to kind of analyze that. Yeah, because Keenum's getting up there in age, and I know he can still sling the rock, but I think Mullins is younger, and he's had that starting... I guess they both have had starting experience. So That's definitely one of those I would need to see. They would have to practice, and then KOC would have to make the call at that point in time. Yeah, and that's ridiculous. Like, I mean, people should put their trust in Jaren Hall. Sorry, I'm kind of like behind on the chat a little bit. I mean, it's there. I'm just scrolling through what you guys are saying so I can talk about all these quarterbacks. So, but it's good that people are putting their trust in Hall just because there's a reason we drafted him and there's a reason that KOC trusts him and why he ended up being the backup, okay, against Kirk or when Kirk went down. So, out of all those names, I would pick Teddy. Okay, when Scrubs like I wouldn't. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say Daniel Jones is a scrub, just because of that contract. Now, obviously, the Giants don't think he's a scrub. I think he's better than Zach Wilson. But I do like I do like the thought of having Teddy Bridgewater back with the Minnesota Vikings. I really do. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Oh, I know what it is. So people can stop talking smack that I have a Teddy Bridgewater and say I don't have any cred because I have that jersey. Sorry about it, pal. Okay, I mean, you want me to put a Stephon Diggs jersey up here? I mean, not happening. Okay, we don't need that drama queen on this wall. Plain and simple. But yeah, Teddy would be awesome, man. We will see what the results are for tomorrow afternoon, what deadline is going to be. Yeah, so if any move is going to happen, if any move at all is going to happen for the Minnesota Vikings, it's going to have to be by tomorrow before 3 p.m. if we're going to trade for somebody. Okay, and there's a couple targets that we're going to trade for, or could trade for. I've seen multiple. Let's see. I pulled it up earlier. This is an article by Lost Word on Sports. And I basically just searched up, quarterbacks to replace or replacements for Kirk Cousins. And it went through 5 quarterbacks that can replace Kirk Cousins. So 5 people that we should probably look into. It says rank. So Ryan Tannehill. Let's see. Ryan Tannehill missed week 8 with an ankle injury, but reports across the league imply that it is not serious ailment. The veteran quarterback should be back before long, but he probably won't have his starting job. Rookie Will Levis set the world on fire in his NFL debut, completing 19-29 for 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now Levis might be the better quarterback at this point in their respective careers. So, yeah, that makes Ryan Tannehill expendable. That's kind of basically what it says. And while he isn't as good as Kirk Cousins, he's still a solid starter who is more capable of keeping the team afloat. And that's kind of what I'm worried about. Like, yeah, you can keep us afloat, but I don't want to get to the playoffs and then lose right away, and then we're back with like a mid to late round draft pick. That's just something I don't want to do. That's just, we're so used to that happening every single year. Like, we're middle of the pack every year. We're not bad enough to get a top 10. We're not good enough to get the last pick in the draft or win the Super Bowl. We're just always right there. We'll get to the playoffs and we'll lose that game, and it's just like, what's next? So if you're going to keep us afloat, win us some ball games. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I don't want our season to get fumbled either, because there still should be a lot of hope as Minnesota Vikings fans, even though a lot of them got basically swiped away Sunday night or yesterday, right? Because when he went down, it was like, oh boy, right when we were getting rolling, where do we go from here? Like, it makes no sense. Like, it just, take in mind, after he got hurt, there was a thing that came out. Kirk Cousins has never missed an NFL game due to injury. Ever. And the first time he does, it's because he tears his Achilles and he's out the rest of the season. That to me is just like, life's crazy, man. Like, everything, you have to expect the unexpected. Yeah, I didn't even know what to say. Like, I was speechless because I seen it like live when the play was happening, and I was like, oh, he just tripped. Like, he maybe got stepped on or something like that. And then they showed the replay. And then when they slowed it down on his ankle, you could see it pop. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I really didn't know what to think. Hey, that's it might as well. I mean, maybe we should probably stop playing Creed because of that. Maybe. Okay? We still won the game, which is awesome, but how many more games can we win moving forward? We got Atlanta next week. It's going to be tough. All right? And then after that, I do believe it's at what? the Saints, and then the Bears, and then I can't remember after that. But it's not an easy stretch. It's not a tough stretch, but it's a stretch of games where we are capable of winning, but now we have to find a way to do that, to overcome that, and to find a quarterback that's capable of winning those ball games for us. Another one to look at is Jacoby Brissett. Now, I don't think I would want Jacoby Brissett as a Minnesota Viking. That's just my take. I really can't explain why, but I just would not like him in our roster. Okay. So before we get to the one I went about, Andy Dalton, he's one of those guys. He's a backup to Bryce Young. I don't see Carolina necessarily parting ways with him just because, being that it's Bryce Young's first year, he needs that veteran leadership to kind of show him the ropes and help him out when, times would get tough. And I mean, they started 0-6. They got their first win against the Houston Texans with a game-winning field goal yesterday. But still, you want Andy Dalton in that quarterback room to help mold Bryce Young. You don't want to take that away from him, because when you do that, you might stunt his growth. I'm not saying you will, but you might stunt his growth. And Dalton is fit. Yeah, like you said, Dalton is 50-50. Desmond Ridder can stay as far away as possible. I really don't like him as a quarterback. I mean, not that I don't like him. He's booty cheeks. Okay, he makes some really good throws. Some. But then he also makes a lot of poor decisions throwing the ball. I mean, just horrible. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I wouldn't like him, but Carson Wentz was obviously one of those guys. Basically said that Carson Wentz can look like a top 10 quarterback or a guy who shouldn't even be in the league on a drive-by-drive basis, which is something I don't think the organization and us as fans would want to deal with. I don't think I'd want to deal with that. One drive he looks like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. He's a Hall of Famer. The next drive he goes out there and breaks both his ankles and has to hobble around the rest of the game. That's just something I don't want to deal with, especially with that injury past. Like, Kirk Cousins just went down. If we bring in Carson Wentz, he gets hurt. Now we're stuck right where we were. Like, it just wouldn't make sense to me. Mac Jones is another one to keep an eye on, but that's not going to happen. Okay, I don't want Mac Jones. He's a check-down quarterback. He can be good, but I don't want him as a Minnesota Viking. That's just me personally saying that. So, yeah, I understand he's a top 5 quarterback or a top 10, but Mac Jones just wouldn't be something that I would want on a roster. Earlier I had a tweet pop up too that basically stated that the Minnesota Vikings we should keep an eye on Colt McCoy as potentially being a Minnesota Vikings. And I think, let me go pull up that tweet. I think it's because he had something to do, or he was with Kevin O'Connell somewhere. Okay, yeah, so Ben Gosling reported this. He's one of the Vikings insiders. This is on X or on Twitter. He said an immediate name to keep an eye on for the Vikings is Colt McCoy, who'd spent 3 years with KOC in Washington. McCoy visited the Vikings earlier this month and could be a fit now to join the team's quarterback room. Now, Colt McCoy, not the greatest quarterback in the world, but we've seen some good things out of him. Remember that one season with Colts, I believe he was like 0-16, looked horrible. But I think he got cut by the Cardinals earlier this year. So let's go see his stats. I just want to see what he did last year. Oh, no, Colt McCoy wasn't on the... I'm thinking of Curtis Painter. Sorry, I apologize. So last year with the Cardinals, Colt McCoy was 68.2% completion percentage, 780 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Not great. Okay, so... And with Washington, 1 game. This is when I do believe... Or in Washington, he had multiple years. Okay, so he had multiple years with KOC. Had a better touchdown to interception ratio when he was there as well. Yeah, he's not great. Like, at that point, if you're going to go with Colt McCoy, you might as well just stick with Nick Mullins, in my opinion. Kyle Sloter, he wouldn't be terrible, but I still feel like Nick Mullins is better than Kyle Sloter. If that helps a little bit. Oh, you're saying he's no Kyler Murray. Okay, which, hey, he might be back this week. So Colt McCoy, I wouldn't take a chance on Colt McCoy, especially when we have Nick Mullins. It just depends on when he comes back and how healthy he is. If we want to sign Colt McCoy. There was another name. There's one name I'm going to wait for here in a second. Yeah, exactly. Same. Like, I don't care who the quarterback is as long as our season doesn't tank further, which means we have to get a quarterback capable of winning ball games. That's just what it comes down to. I've heard Jameis Winston could be a potential target for us, who really hasn't got to see much time, and when he does, it's garbage time, or it's just a quick one, or a quick play to give Derek Carr a breather, or Derek Carr got hurt, Jameis Winston comes in. They use Taysom Hill quite a bit. Sign me up then. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you could sling the rock, go for it. But I don't know, A-Rules. I'd have to see what you got. But yeah, I've heard Jameis Winston be a part of those trade talks. Who else? There's free agents out there. There was a massive list. I wish I would have saved that. Hey, same A-Rules. For those of you guys in the chat, who would you want the Vikings to go after? There's one big target that I would love us to go after. Let's go see. Is this the article? Josh Dobbs. I just wouldn't like that. John Wolford definitely would not like that. Gosh, where was that list? I don't know. There was a list that dove through. Let's go. How about this? Let's just make it easy. All right, we're going to go search up free agent NFL quarterbacks. Well, this list has to be old as dirt, because that makes, there we go, 2024 free agent tracker. That's not, no. Okay. 2023 update. No, well, let's see. All statuses, unrestricted free agent update. Available. Okay, here we go. So there's a massive list. We've talked about Carson Wentz. We talked about Matt Ryan. Oh, we didn't talk about Matt Ryan. No. Don't want Matt Ryan. I just don't think he has it anymore. I think he's doing just fine in the booth. He has a family. He has to worry about that. We'll just leave that where that is. Joe Flacco, but again, up there in age. Really didn't do too much when he was with the Jets. I wouldn't take a chance on him. Trevor Siemian, who's played here before. Let's see. Will Grier, young, ready to rock and roll, but there's a reason he's a free agent. It's because he's not good enough. Ben DiNucci. That would be interesting. Don't think that's going to happen, but it would be pretty interesting. Let's see. Did they put the list? There's been so many tweets today just because the trade deadline is tomorrow. So okay. Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about Carson Wentz right now. Like, that seems to be the number one name that I am seeing. No way. Okay, so I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is true at all. CJ Golson, let's see if he's international insider, college football coverage for 11 plus years, betting, DFS and analyst, the People's Insider. This is what he said. I am not 100% sure if this is going to happen. All right, so bear with me. This is from CJ Golson on Twitter. It says, per source, the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints are discussing a trade that would send quarterback Jameis Winston to Minnesota. I'm told both sides are pushing hard to get a deal over the line before tomorrow's deadline, and Winston is eager for the opportunity. Now, I don't know where he got eager from because he would have to talk to him. So I'm not 100% sure if that's true. That is just what I'm reading right now, and it looks like I mean, he's got over 1,000 followers or over 6,000 followers, so he could be. I don't know. I'm not going to trust it right now, but that would make sense. I would be okay with Jameis. What would you guys think of Jameis Winston on the Minnesota Vikings? If you had to be completely honest, you could just say yes or no, because I'd be okay with it. We would just have to be ready for a rocky second half of the season. Kind of how that thing would go. Let's see. What is he doing? Okay, those names are just stupid. I don't know what that guy was talking about. But I mean, Jameis Winston would be a pretty decent option for us. However, there's one name that just keeps me going. A name that all of us should probably keep an eye on. I think it would make the most sense. I think it would help the team out in bringing back a Minnesota native. Okay? Coming back to the home state, performing well. Okay? Let's get a video going, shall we? One name to keep in mind for the Minnesota Vikings as a potential trade would be the Dallas Cowboys backup quarterback, Trey Lance. Okay? Now, the Vikings missed what would have been the perfect move earlier this year when they didn't spend the fourth rounder the Cowboys used to get Trey Lance. We could have done it. Okay? It's just that simple. But sitting in regret isn't useful. Making the move now will cost slightly more, but could matter more as well. Imagine we trade for Trey Lance. He becomes a guy in Minnesota, leads us to a pretty decent playoff run. I'm not going to say Super Bowl because I don't think that's in the realm of possibility. It could be. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. But he could end up becoming a guy, coming back home to Minnesota and balling out in front of his fans or his friends and his family and stuff like that. That'd be great. Now, Lance is an enigma multiple NFL teams have tried to figure out. The 49ers drafted him number 3 overall because they saw his talent, but it never materialized into success in San Francisco. And after an injury, he was beaten out by Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold on the depth chart. So the Cowboys took the chance on him because of the potential, but he's served only as the team's emergency quarterback, not yet elevating into a backup role behind Dak Prescott. So he's basically just there sitting around doing nothing. So it would be the perfect option for the Minnesota Vikings. We talked about it earlier this year. Trade for Trey Lance. Let's go get him. People are like, you want this bum? No, he's not a bum. Okay, maybe he just didn't have a good outing in San Francisco. There's been times in the NFL where we've seen quarterbacks go, get drafted, can't play, they move teams. We see it in every single sports league. It's just, it depends on the situation, it depends on the system, it depends on the play caller, the coach. There's a lot of things that being a good quarterback depends on. Okay, and now Trey Lance didn't have success in San Francisco, but I think that's because we got to see Brock Purdy go on an absolute tear, so Trey Lance really didn't get any opportunity, and when he did, he got hurt. So maybe there's that, that factor of being scared that Trey Lance could get hurt. But I think the Minnesota Vikings should go out, trade for Trey Lance, and let's see what happens. Because if he becomes a dude, wins some ball games for us, takes us to the playoffs, there's no need for us to draft a quarterback. We can just live in the Trey Lance experience here in Minnesota for the next at least year. But I think that's the kickers. You're going to have to sign him to a contract extension, and how big is that going to be, being that he was a number 3 overall pick? Not 100% sure, but Trey Lance makes the most sense for the Minnesota Vikings to go out and sign. I don't know about you guys. You guys can let me know in the comment section what you would think about trading for Trey Lance. I don't think we'd have to give much. Okay, the Dallas Cowboys traded a 4th rounder to get him. That means they're probably going to want that 4th rounder replaced to pull him away from Dallas. And I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, shout out Grid, Lions Syndicate host. He seen a tweet that basically Daniel Jeremiah laid out what the Cowboys would want in return for Trey Lance, and it was either a 3rd or a 4th round pick. Now, I'm not sure we'd give a 3rd round pick for Trey Lance, even though we don't have any leverage. There's no leverage for the Minnesota Vikings on this. If we want a guy, we're going to have to go get one. So the Dallas Cowboys in that situation have all the leverage. You want Trey Lance? Okay, give us a 3rd round pick. If not, kick rocks is basically how it could go down. So I'd be okay with giving a 4th rounder for Trey Lance. I mean, you guys can let me know in the comment section again what you would think, but the Minnesota Vikings need to trade for Trey Lance. Okay, that's just plain and simple. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think that are watching right now? Would you be okay with the Vikings to trade for Trey Lance? Let me know. Let's see what y'all have to say. There's plenty of options for the Vikings to go and make a move. And I'm sure today all they sat down and talked about was, what do we do next? Where do we go from here? And I'm sure there was a lot of hype for Jaren Hall, who... What's up, Skip? You ain't getting no 2 first-round picks for Trey Lance? Absolutely not. That would be absurd. If the Vikings did that, you have no idea how pissed off I'd be. I'd be livid if that was the case. I'd be so mad. Oh my goodness. I think a fourth and some change, which maybe a fourth and like a next year 5th round pick, or because it's not going to take much to pry Trey Lance away from Dallas, especially if he's not the backup. If he's truly just their 3rd quarterback, it shouldn't take anything at all. Especially if he's from Minnesota, I think it'd be a little bit easier to pull him away. Because, I mean, he wants to start. He wants another chance, and Minnesota would be a great opportunity for it because we need it. Any other quarterbacks you guys are thinking of that the Vikes should go take a chance on? I'm kind of, at this point, I've talked myself out of the Carson Wentz experience. I don't want Nick Foles. I don't want Ryan Tannehill. I'd be okay with. Like, I wouldn't be upset. But if you go with Ryan Tannehill, you should have just gone to Trey Lance. Trey Lance is younger. He probably has more upside than Ryan Tannehill, where Ryan Tannehill's going to keep you afloat, might make the playoffs, and then he's going to blow it. And it's just, you're going to have a mid-round pick, a 16 overall pick, or a 20th overall pick, whatever the case may be. I'm just surprised. I guess I'm not really surprised that they haven't made a move yet, but the Vikes need to go out and do something. They have to. Because going forward the rest of the season, like I mentioned a couple times, with Jaren Hall, I don't see us going very far. And that just, to me, that just tells us we're tanking on the season. Or we have so much hope in this guy to actually be a dog, and we're just going to see what happens. And if by tomorrow at 3 p.m. the Vikings have not traded for a quarterback, I'm going to be a little worried. Because no matter who we get, they're not going to start this week. At least I wouldn't expect them to. It's going to be Jaren Hall this week against the Atlanta Falcons, whether we like it or not. And I think that's where we're going to really see just how good he is. How good of a game manager he is. Is he a check down quarterback? I know he can move. And now the Falcons did just lose Grady Jarrett to a season-ending, I think, ACL injury. So maybe that makes it a little easier on him. But regardless, Jaren Hall's going to end up starting. Unless, we have a situation like the Rams did when they brought Baker Mayfield in 2 days. He learned the playbook and was able to win the ball game. Like, I don't know how that happened, but he's a different breed. So I give him kudos, but it's just not going to happen. We have got to bring in somebody to be ready for not this week, but next week against the Saints. And we need somebody competent enough to throw the rock downfield and make smart decisions so that when JJ is back, when he's 100% healthy, we have a dynamic, explosive offense again without Kirk Cousins. And that's going to be tough to replace because Cousins has been balled out this entire year. So I'm going to be very upset if we don't make a move within the next 24 to 36 hours just because it needs to happen. Need to get somebody in the building. And if we're really going to go with what we have right now, with Jaren Hall, Nick Mullins when he comes off IR, and Sean Mannion, yeah, I seen Jacoby Brissett as well. I think so. Let's go see here quick. Let's go back to I was on an article that basically read, and I can read what it said so that it makes sense a little bit more. Let's go see. Right here, Jacoby Brissett. So, it said Jacoby Brissett has spent the 2023 season backing up Sam Howell, but we know that he can be a perfectly serviceable starter in small doses. The former third-round pick played well for the Browns last year and was actually better than Deshaun Watson, which isn't that hard, especially as of recent. The Washington Commanders signed Brissett as an insurance policy in case Howell wasn't ready to start, but with Howell playing well, somewhat well, Washington should be willing to part ways with the journeyman passer for the right price. Now, if Jacoby Brissett can play like he did in 2022, then he should be able to be adequately replace Kirk Cousins and guide the Vikings to a wild card berth. Which I'd be okay with that. I would. But it kind of reminds me of that Ryan Tannehill situation. He's going to keep you afloat, might make the playoffs, and if you do, it's just one and done. And I don't think I'd have to be okay with it at that point, just because we made the playoffs in such a weird season, starting off so crappy, and then all of a sudden we find a way to win or to go to the playoffs without Kirk Cousins for the rest of the year. So I'd have to be okay with it, but I'm so sick and tired of just, I don't know, sitting around having a mid-level pick. Like, if we're going to be good, let's be good enough to have from number 20 to number 32 draft pick. Otherwise, if we're just going to tank away the season, let's have a top 10 pick for once. But I don't want us to tank on the season, especially because we're just getting going. We're just getting that momentum on our side. Things are starting to look good. It's just a brutal hit. Like, I don't know how we rally from this. I know we can, because the next stretch of games for us isn't that hard. Like, it's not that difficult. If we look at the Vikes schedule moving forward. Okay, expect Jaren Hall to start this weekend against the Atlanta Falcons. That's just plain and simple. It doesn't matter who you bring in at this point unless they can learn the offense in a couple days. I just don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be Jaren Hall against the Atlanta Falcons. But then after that, when you do have this quarterback, whoever it may be, hopefully it's Trey Lance. Okay, I would love to see him in a Minnesota Vikings uniform just to give him another chance. But you look at the New Orleans Saints, it's a very winnable ball game. Okay, it's going to be tough, but it's a very winnable ball game. And we've beat the Saints every single time we've played them since 2009. So that gives me a little bit more hope. Then you look at the Denver Broncos. We're in Denver. They had a massive upset win against the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday, starting to finally, fly around, making plays defensively. They're all the way back. So that'll be a tough one, maybe. Then you got the Chicago Bears. I think we can easily beat them. It depends on who their quarterback's going to be. Tyson Bagent is going to be the starter this week again for them. So that Justin Fields injury might be a little worse than we were expecting, or Tyson's just doing enough to keep his streak alive so that they can make sure Justin Fields is actually like 110% ready to rock and roll. And then we go into the bye week, and then we got Raiders, Bengals, Detroit. And that stretch of games after the bye week is when we need a quarterback that's, a little bit more experienced than what he was going to be, if that makes any sense. Like, he has, New Orleans, Denver, and Chicago to really get this playbook down, build that chemistry with the receivers, go into that bye week, learn a little bit more, and then bam, we have this tough stretch of games, and now he's ready to rock and roll. He can maybe go out there and win 2 out of those 3, or 4 out of those 4, or 3 out of those 3. So, I really don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. I have seen little to no movement on the Vikings side of things, but you would have to assume that all day today they just kind of, I think they had to have weighed their options. They had to have weighed their options. If not, like, what are we doing? So, yeah, I really don't know what to say about this source from CJ Golson, basically stating that the Minnesota Vikings and the Saints are discussing a trade that would send Jameis Winston to Minnesota. I'm not going to believe it until it comes through from like a higher up insider like an Adam Schefter or Tom Pelissero and stuff like that. I'd be okay with Jameis. But again, it's one of those like, it's kind of like Carson Wentz. He can look really, really good one drive and then really, really bad the next drive. And that's something, I guess we're used to it as Vikings fans, those highs and those lows, just kind of riding the roller coaster. But is that really what we want to do? Who knows? Maybe Jameis comes over here and starts balling out. Who knows? You never, ever know. I don't think there's been any other tweets that link any other people. Okay, so I don't know if this is hilarious as well. Oh, yeah, so this would kind of make sense, but I don't think I'd like it. I would kind of be upset about it. But for those of you that don't know, Cardinals coach Jonathan Gannon today told reporters that either Kyler Murray or rookie Clayton Tooney Not Joshua Dobbs will start Sunday against Cleveland. Murray remains on IR, but obviously getting close. So that means Joshua Dobbs could potentially be out of a job, and the Vikings could trade for him. And I don't want that. He's a great. He did a decent enough job with the Cardinals, but we don't need Joshua Dobbs. So I think the best way to look at this is just kind of wait and see what happens. But just know that the Vikings have to make a move. And if we don't, that shouldn't sit well with any of us. That means we are tanking the season. We're looking for a top 10 pick, and we're probably not going to win many more ball games going forward. We're not going to make the playoffs. That's my opinion, unless Jaron Hall is an absolute dog, but I don't see it. I don't see that happening. So we have, let's see, a little under 24 hours before the trade deadline, 3 p.m. tomorrow, if we're going to trade for somebody. After that, I'm not sure if the free agency window closes. I don't think so. I think that's later on in the year, like late November. I can't really remember off the top of my head. I know it closes at some point, but it has to be a move that, like, we have to make a move this week. Kirk got hurt. His season's over with. Time to look forward to what's next. We have to do that. Eyes forward. Okay, we have to find a replacement. And I'm all in on the Trey Lance sweepstakes. I'm all in on that. We've heard about Andy Dalton. I don't see Carolina getting rid of him just because they want to keep him to show Bryce Young the ropes a little bit, at least for the rest of this season, to kind of ride those highs and lows with him and teach him a little bit more about the game. So I don't see Carolina parting ways with him at all. Jacoby Brissett wouldn't be a bad option. Tannehill wouldn't be a terrible option. Carson Wentz, it just depends on what version of him you get. There was this article, one of the quarterbacks that we could end up going to get would be Mac Jones. Don't think New England would want to part ways with him, but I wouldn't want him as my quarterback just because he's a check down quarterback and really can't move the rock downfield. So there's a lot of names that we have to keep an eye on, and anything literally can happen, but I'm expecting a trade, and I want it to be for Trey Lance. So, what's up, A-Rules? Yeah, you're not going to get 2 first rounds there, Skip, for Trey. But yeah, man, I guess, I don't know. I have no idea if it's the real one or not. Just got to assume it might be. It'd be kind of cool. Any other names that you guys have in mind for the Vikings to potentially go out and take a peek at? I think we also mentioned Colt McCoy earlier too. Honestly, I really can't remember. I did talk about Trey Lance and trading for him. I think that would make a lot of sense, especially because we were going to do it earlier this year. That ended up falling through the cracks, but I don't know. I think it'd be a logical signing. But anyways, there's really not much more to talk about. We kind of dove through all the quarterbacks, and basically just know we have to make a move, and it's going to have to happen within the next 24 hours. Like, there's nothing else we can do besides sit down and wait. Yeah, give me Teddy. I'd be okay with Teddy. We can pluck him away from Detroit because they're going to activate Hendon Hooker's 21-day practice window any day. So I think that's what the Gridiron Blitz said. Shout out Grid from the Lions Syndicate. He's the Lions Syndicate host. That is what he said, so that makes sense, and obviously would love it. I'd be okay with it. But give me Teddy or Trey, Teddy Bridgewater or Trey Lance if you're going to trade for somebody. If you're going to go into free agency, which, dear Lord, help us. Make sure I pull up this free agency list real quick. If it would load, that'd be fantastic. All right, since you want to be like this, boom, boom, boom. Available. All right, so trade. If we're going to trade, I want Teddy or Trey Lance. If we're going to go into free agency, Carson Wentz, God. Colt McCoy, just because he has that experience with Kevin O'Connell back in Washington, so that would make sense. Looking at the rest of them, man, I just wouldn't trust any other quarterback. I mean, Nick Foles and Joe Flacco, I just wouldn't want them. There's no way. Kyler Murray, it looks like that organization is going to continue to roll with Kyler Murray moving forward. I don't think they're shopping him at all. I actually seen that tweet today. They're not shopping Kyler Murray. I would love it. Don't get me wrong. I would absolutely love it, but that's not going to happen. And yes, I'm not 100% sure if I'll be streaming or going to that game yet. I still have to wait on my buddy. I don't think I'm going to end up going to that one, so that means I will be streaming it. But just stay tuned later on in the week. I'm pretty positive I'll be streaming that game, and it's going to be a rough one, to be completely honest. But there's some names to keep in mind. If you guys have any other options, feel free to let me know. Leave a comment in the video that I'm about to drop here once I get off this live. But I appreciate everyone that tuned in. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much appreciated. We're almost to 1,100 subs, so that'd be great. And also become a channel member by hitting that join link below. You can get some exclusive perks and stuff like that. So make sure to do it. You definitely don't have to, but if you have any other options at quarterback that the Vikings can go look at, let me know in that comment section below. Have a great rest of your night, folks. Stay safe. Stay happy. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Watch the Detroit Lions take on the Las Vegas Raiders, and let's hope the Lions lose, huh? Let's hope big time that they lose, because we could use some momentum going into this next week against the Falcons. But anyways, have a great rest of your night, folks. We'll see you guys later. And well, hey, Skol Vikes.